In your neighborhood. In your neighborhood. Oh, these are the people in your neighborhood.
Wouldn't it be weird if people in the neighborhood like watch this and they were like, "Hey, watch your show."
Howdy, neighbor.
What? Thanks.
What if we started every show off like, howdy, neighbor?
No, Mr. Rogers already did that.
Oh. We haven't started our show off like we used to in a long time.
Hello, butthole.
Hello, buttface. What do you want to do today?
I want to ruin the internet.
Episode 77.
Mm-hmm. I'm Misty.
And I'm Ike.
For the next 15 minutes,
We're going to debate pop culture.
my background's in music.
My background's in film.
I know the topics beforehand.
And I don't.
We check the internet for the facts,
And ruin it with opinions.
from pop rocks in your lunchbox.
To Happy Meal toys and swatch clocks. Episode 77. It trips me out every time we get to a higher number.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's how numbers work.
It is how numbers work, indeed. Well, do you want to just like get to it today?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay.
Let me meow real quick.
Okay.
Meow.
We're going to talk about Iron Man today.
Oh, finally.
Finally, after one episode, we get to talk about Iron Man.
I have to revel in this because I would consider myself to be a aficionado.
Okay. Well, Iron Man was the first film to kick off the Marvel universe.
Right.
So, today, I want to talk about cool things about the Iron Man movie, the original.
Okay.
And I want to drop some knowledge on you.
Dude, my computer really is listening to me. I just typed IR and went Iron Man trivia facts.
Of course it did.
That's weird.
Do-do-do.
Wow.
So, May 2nd, 2008 is when it came out.
That feels like just yesterday.
It launched one of the most successful film franchises ever.
That's
I
right.
can't make words right now.
Franchises.
So, one of the things that I read about that I thought was super cool was it was in development for years.
Mm-hmm.
So, by the time that it actually happened, in the late 90s, the character Iron Man was optioned by Fox.
Mm-hmm.
That would go on to make the Marvel movies X-Men and the Fantastic Four.
Right. X-Men good, Fantastic Four bad.
I liked Fantastic Four.
That was all right
That
for
was
what it
pretty
is. Yeah.
By the year 2000, it had landed at New Line Pictures, and it bounced from writer to writer. And the studio even had a director in mind, the guy who directed The Notebook.
Why?
Which is super weird.
Nick Cassavetes?
Yeah.
Why?
Then, unfortunately,
That means he would probably put that dude in it from The Notebook.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine if he was Iron Man?
That would not be the same.
I can't imagine anyone in my head playing that character with the charisma and the dry sense of humor that Robert Downey Jr. has.
He was the only choice.
Literally the only choice.
I wonder who else. You know what? I'm going to look up who else.
You should. Who else was up for it? So the guy at New Line, Bob Shea, was not a fan of the entire concept at all. He argued that it made no sense that a heavy steel suit could make a man fly, and was skeptical of the character's box office potential. So the Marvel folks, believing they could do a better job with the character, launched their own studio plan. They let New Line Cinema's option on the film expire in 2005.
What a mistake.
Right? And began developing their own take on what would become Iron Man. I think that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
Did you find who else
I did,
auditioned?
but later down in this article, it talks about one specifically. Tom Cruise was considered for the role. Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Did you know? Have you seen any of the little clips about how close Nicolas Cage got to playing Superman?
I did.
That's a whole.
When we did our Nicolas Cage deep dive.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
I actually ran into a lot of info about that.
Yeah. Wow. Sam Rockwell.
Colin Farrell and Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah.
Patrick Dempsey, actually, there's a little bit of me that's like, okay, he's got a pretty dry, sarcastic sense of humor. That maybe would have worked.
I could have lived with Sam Rockwell.
I could have lived with Sam Rockwell, although he does so much better as the nerdy guy.
Yeah, and well, he played the nemesis.
Right, exactly.
Justin Hammer.
Justin Hammer.
Yep.
Yeah, and he does it so well. Yeah.
And then this other list has Hugh Jackman, Nicolas Cage, Sam Rockwell, Timothy Olyphant.
Oh, he would have been great. Okay, I'm not... that one right there, only person that I would put on par with Robert Downey Jr. for that role.
I think Rockwell could have pulled it off.
Maybe.
He's a little doughy.
He's just a little dopey.
Yeah.
Like...
Timothy Olyphant would be great, but he's a little too tall, I think. And he was coming right off of Deadwood. You'd think he'd be like cowboy.
I think he could have killed that.
Really?
Man. I do.
He's one of my favorite actors.
I adore him.
He's
so great.
What's the first movie you fell in love with Timothy Olyphant? Me too.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Go. Yeah.
Even though he plays such a creepy weirdo,
well,
but he's a heart of gold.
Those were, that was my heyday.
Dude.
Back in like the beginning of college.
We should do an episode on Go. I love that movie.
It's so good.
Let's make a note.
So good.
Cool. So what else about Iron Man is fascinating?
So when Robert Downey Jr. showed up for his screen test, he wore a tuxedo.
Okay. I would too, man. Shit.
So when he went in to do that, his career had kind of dropped off because he had had a lot of public struggles with his sobriety. He had gone to jail a couple of times. Jon Favreau fought for Robert Downey Jr. to get a shot at this character. Kind of because the personal demons that Tony Stark faces on his own could somewhat be very similar to the ones that Robert Downey Jr. faced in his real life.
Right.
Yep. So
I was looking up a gap in his career before Iron Man. I thought Iron Man kind of rejuvenated it, but he's got 4 movies in 2007, a bunch in 2006.
Had you heard of any of them though?
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, we could go all the way back to it looks like the big gap was from right after Ally McBeal, but there's
so good in Ally McBeal.
Gothica, Game 6, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Good Night and Good Luck,
Bang.
Family
It's one
Guy,
of my favorite movies.
The Shaggy Dog.
What about the one he did with the
Zodiac.
dog and was it Zach Galifianakis?
Oh, Long Way Home or Catch a Ride. Dude, that was good. I guess
it was with a French bulldog that looked like Gizmo.
Due Date.
That's what it was. So bad. It was such a bad movie.
I loved it.
It was terrible.
Yeah. All right.
So Downey was super eager to go in and audition and knock it out of the park. So he agreed to do a screen test, something that, a lot of major stars don't want to do once they have years of experience. They don't feel like they need to do a screen test any longer.
Yep.
So he showed up in true Tony Stark style wearing a tuxedo. He impressed all of the executives and was hired for $2.5 million plus potential bonus if the film did well on site.
I think it did pretty well.
Yeah.
What did he end up making for the whole total?
That's the kicker. So 2.5 mil sounds like a pretty good sum, but it's peanuts compared to what Downey earned when he renegotiated for his contract with Marvel after Iron Man's success, an estimated $50 million for the Avengers alone. Just the Avengers movie.
Just the first Avengers movie.
Just the Avengers movie.
Can I share a little secret with you?
Yeah.
On his current IMDb page.
Yeah.
Black Widow, which is now in post-production.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's because they've delayed it 3 times because of the quarantine.
It says Tony Stark, but it also says rumored.
Yeah. Well, what they're rumoring is that they're going to use CGI because there are going to be some time shift, looking back things. Because obviously, Black Widow did not make it through Endgame.
Oh, that's right.
So her solo movie is backwards in time.
Yeah, prequel.
So, yeah, all of those characters will still be a part of that universe. Yeah.
I'm Googling how much did...
and another trick that they often use, too, is that they used already shot footage to pop in there for things like that they own.
Interesting. I mean, I'm sure they have a ton of it. He was saying on a podcast, or to David Letterman's My Next Guest Needs No Instruction, either that or on Smartless, he was saying that the first couple times he had to wear the actual helmet, and then eventually he was like, you know what? Put some dots on here, folks.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it anymore.
Can't even imagine. He wasn't the first person that was cast. Terence Howard was actually the first person that was cast.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Man, he really missed the boat.
He really did. We've talked about this before. How, he was actually replaced in Iron Man 2 and onward with Don Cheadle. I think for my understanding is that the reason he was replaced is because he asked for a pay increase. And at the time, they didn't feel like they were able to give it to him because they needed to renegotiate with Robert Downey Jr. And they gave him more money because he's the star.
Mm-hmm.
And that Terrence Howard just went, cool, I'm out. So then they found Don Cheadle. And he's still in all of the movies as we go forward.
That's amazing.
And he's Don Cheadle.
Mm-hmm.
Another man full of nothing but like just sheer charisma and dry sense of humor. House of Lies, one of my favorite TV shows. So yeah.
Sorry, I went down a rabbit hole.
It's okay. I could tell.
I'm on this article that has a running total of how much he made and by which film. Mm-hmm. And I'm up to Avengers Endgame. Oh, that's the last one. Mm-hmm. Running total $396 to $435 million for all of his roles as Iron Man.
Awesome.
That's $500 million almost.
Right on it is. Like,
wow.
Do your thing.
No wonder he has an alpaca farm in Malibu.
So deserved.
Yeah.
You know? I mean,
I wonder what
you gave birth to an entire universe of movies. You played a role well enough to give them the oomph to keep going.
This. Oh, that's rude. Sorry.
Blowing up Hollywood. Is that RDJ calling you right now? Say, hey, stop reading my amounts of money.
He owes me a couple bucks. The last phrase of this article says, considering how much money Downey's movies ended up racking up, he was probably worth that initial $500,000 deposit, having gone on to earn more himself than Iron Man did over its entire domestic run at the box office. So he made, after all the movies are said and done, he made more than the first one made.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Do you know that he improvised most of the original movie?
Oh, I'm sure.
I think this is so cool. So the Iron Man script was never entirely completed. So Downey and
Favreau directed that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Favreau would essentially conduct improvised rehearsals before shooting. Mm-hmm. And
they just had the plot
Jeff
points.
Bridges hated it, by the way.
Sure.
Like, he found it very, very troubling to like not have a proper script, and had to like completely readjust his way of like thinking. And he says that it freaked him out. He was very anxious. He likes to be prepared. I like to know my lines. That's just where it came from. Mm-hmm. Very prepared. And Robert Downey Jr. was the opposite. You know, he's absolutely fine with improvisation because he's so intelligent and has such a dry, sarcastic sense of humor. Had no problem just improvising on the spot, whatever he needed to do.
And as long as you hit your plot beats, it doesn't really matter what the specific words are that get you from A to B.
Yeah. So I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing that I thought was really cool, toy companies, because, you know, all of those superhero figures, like they make figurines, they make, you know, the pop funk dolls, all of that stuff. They were really hesitant to create any merchandise lines because they were, first of all, they were concerned about some of the adult themes in the Iron Man movies. But they also didn't think that they would make any money. They didn't think it was going to be profitable.
Boy, a lot of people missed the boat on that.
Right? One. Toy companies weren't convinced that Marvel's flying man in an armored suit was going to sell.
They sure are pretty positive now, aren't they?
Right? Completely.
Wow. Mm-hmm. If I had $1 for everybody that was wrong about this whole thing.
Right. So, I mean, needless to say, it was a huge box office hit, and it was a huge surprise to everyone. The very early projections suggested it would come in at $100 million for its domestic box office run. The trailer started to hit. People started to get excited about it. The film ended up making its $100 million estimate domestically during its opening weekend alone. Cleared $585 million worldwide by the time that it left theaters.
Oh, that's not the same amount of money that Robert Downey Jr. made?
No.
I bet at the time of the writing of that, it wouldn't have made an extra $100 million.
In the beginning, the film executives hoped that they would be able to break even.
Yeah. What was the budget for the first Iron Man?
I don't know.
Find out.
But they did give Favreau and Downey a Bentley and a Mercedes after it was over with.
Oh, based on the cars in the...
Yeah.
And Audi's given Downey like he can have any Audi he
Dude,
wants.
Audis are all over the Marvel movies. The Captain Americas, it's nothing but Audis everywhere.
Yeah, I mean
and the Avengers movies.
It cost $140 million to make Iron Man.
Well, they did better than break even then.
Oh yeah,
they did all right.
585 on its $140 million. I mean, the movie business is, if you're going to throw $140 million at anything, plus that's not the total budget for the film.
No,
that's the production budget.
Right.
Actually, it could be. Maybe because generally the rule of thumb on film marketing is it's 3 times what you shoot the movie for is what you pay to advertise it.
Right.
So maybe they made it for 40 and then they spent $100 million on marketing.
Maybe
not. I could Google the marketing budget, but I don't feel like it.
Do you remember what Stan Lee's character, his cameo character was?
It was like a Playboy-esque type of...
He was Hugh Hefner.
Yeah.
Yeah. He showed up with 2 Playboy bunny-looking models, blonde young, dressed with his pipe and his smoking jacket.
I wonder what those young ladies have gone on to do with their lives.
You know, I'm looking at him right now, and I'm saying probably drinking a box of wine on the sofa.
Yeah, he's got like...
I've not seen either of them again.
One of them looks young. The other one looks like she's in her 30s.
The other one looks like a very much younger version of Ariana Huffington.
Interesting.
Which, yeah.
All right. Well,
so that's our little interesting dive into Iron Man super facts.
Iron Man super facts. And we're not going to go into, you know what we didn't reveal at the beginning of this episode?
What
the
your
score
score
from
was.
yesterday. I don't think anybody's going to notice.
Scored about a 78%.
Should I cut that into the beginning of this episode?
You can. You don't have to.
I'm not going to. All right. I can't wait to find out what tomorrow's all about. Because as long as it's not Friday.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. There we go.
Sorry. I thought you were going to say the whole thing.
Bye, guys.